The year is 2025. In the vast oceans and lands of the earth and the voids of space, man has continued its search for rare elements and substances whose value remains too high to be designated a number. Diamonds, platinums, a good politician, these are just some of the things that humanity longs for in its search. But rarer still is a thing that brings tears to one's eyes at the slightest utterance of its name: an original science fiction film. And you know what's rare? An actual good one. What makes an original film? The definition has definitely become diluted in modern times, with so many films, good and bad, somehow being part of a franchise. In fact, some of my favorite of the genre through the last decades have been part of a bigger story, but it's that sense of familiarity that's become, well, so familiar. We know about the replicants and the evil corpos. We know Weyland Yutani is up to no good. We know Australia is fucked up. So grease your rusty engines and give us something new already. There have been many great original science fiction films of the century, but as we've progressed more and more towards our doom, it's no secret that we've seen less and less of it. It's become sort of endangered. However, there are some very select few films and filmmakers that are keeping it from being extinct. This is where Bong Joon Ho comes in, with his 4 Oscars, like I'll fill in the gap, I'll fill the void, I'll bring back the fucking dinosaurs, and like the corporation in Gen, he too fails at his Herculean task. Even though he did make something moderately cool along the way, I'll admit.
It's a dinosaur.
Let's dial it back a little. Mickey 17, when it was first announced, was exciting. A cool premise explored by a very competent, well-regarded director meant we were gonna get something that did not just scratch the surface of its concept, but went deeper and simulated the philosophical threads of the audience with it. Robert Pattinson was gonna lead, which had me even more giddy. It was something to be enthusiastic about if you were the fan of the genre, but as you've probably figured out if you've watched the movie or seen the title before you click the video, this story does not have a happy ending. It has an ending that I don't even know how to feel about. What if you could clone yourself when you die and with all your memories intact, effectively making you an immortal being who remains an expendable workforce of the company that created this technology? Would it impact your consciousness? Would it mean that all those pointless and meaningless deaths were not deaths at all? The film puts a lot of questions about human consciousness and what it means to be human. Does it answer these questions? Well, that's debatable. Now, the first half of the film is spent in building these questions in a meaningful and fun way. As you can imagine, this is also the best part of the movie. It is also the part that is responsible for the disappointment you'll experience later on. See, because the film sets the tone that would lead you to believe it's gonna do something with these questions, not necessarily answer them in a definitive way, but make the characters go through it, provide enough crumbs for the audience to follow and figure it out for themselves. What it instead becomes is a messy, weird, and unfunny mix of a political SNL-like satire and a Monty Python sketch that's not nearly as good as the latter. It is not a serious movie by any means, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be serious to meaningfully explore the complicated implications it itself makes apparent in an interesting way. Honestly, I was on board with the quirky offbeat humor it brought to the table amidst such a serious concept. And a lot of thanks should go to Robert Pattinson's performance. His character was like an introvert casted into an extroverted world, and he played him perfectly. His narrations were funny and relatable. His pauses and interruptions really gave a conversational tone to it that made it feel more genuine and organic, which is great because a lot of the dialogue in the first 30 minutes is just Mickey's inner monologues. He gives context to the world, his character, which might feel slightly expository, but it works, I think. Because while being humorous, it also manages to hook you, letting you want to see more of the world. It gives you confidence in its narrative strengths, which it horribly betrays later on. Mickey 17 in its later half tries to do a lot. It tries to say a lot while also trying to make you laugh. Trying. It's the key word here, because in doing so, it abandons everything that it was building before. It becomes this spoof fest of political satire that was so much of a background before, which worked. When it tries to bring that to the forefront, it unfortunately falls apart, because who needs this? Who is this movie for? What's its audience? This tone change is so baffling. It abandons greatness for slapstick nonsense tomfoolery. Let's talk about Soma for a bit, a video game that has a lot in common with this movie. It was also an exploration of human consciousness that juggled numerous side plots and themes with its core elements. But why that worked and became one of my favorite games is because, one, it never ever forgot what its strengths were, and two, it managed to neatly wrap up those side plots in a way that made sense. It wasn't just nonsensical dilly-dallying like Mickey 17. And you can say, of course, because that was a 9 to 10 hour long game and this is a 2.5 hour long movie. And that would be a good argument if it wasn't for the fact that Mickey 17 has this scene, which is one of the most pointless sequences I've ever seen in a movie. It rehashes the same joke, the same commentary again, wrapped nicely with Mickey just exploding in vomit. And that would be fine if it was just some throwaway filler scene, but no. This goes on for over 10 minutes. In fact, there are more than a few scenes that follow this common thread. They linger on for way too long, or for just a little bit too long, reusing the same jokes over and over again. Mark Ruffalo doing his best Donald Trump impression as funny at first. Tony Collette being obsessed over converting anything and everything into sauce is funny at first. But when you do these same jokes for 2 hours straight, without introducing any interesting elements or twists to it, it becomes hair-pullingly annoying. These are excruciatingly exhausting characters to watch, and when films do these comedic parodical characters as villains, there is a reason they keep them to a minimum screen time. Keep in mind, most of these criticisms fall to the later half of the film. As I've said before, the first half, or more specifically the first 50 minutes, which is less than half to be fair, is actually pretty great. Everything it tries to do works. It is funny, quirky, entertaining, while also managing to be intriguing. Notice how I didn't talk about those questions though? The questions that I was talking about before? Well, that's what the film does. That's why it's a disappointment. It betrays you. It betrays itself by avoiding its strong suits in favor of what's weaker about it. It's sad because it perishes right in front of you, right in front of your eyes, a slow, sad, and torturous death.